First off, do you have any update on Logan or anything like that?
Yeah, we do actually. The MRI results came back. They were better than we had anticipated. And there's obviously there is some damage there. It's not as extensive as first thought. So we're still, we're sending for a little more, few more tests just to make sure, and we'll go from there. So we're still waiting on a little bit more of evaluation, but it is a little bit more positive than first anticipated.
So he didn't necessarily tear his ACL?
That right now is the thing that seems to be positive, is that he didn't. And we're just waiting to get confirmation, and we want to make sure we don't want to get ahead of it or anything like that. Okay. So, please just understand that.
Absolutely. And then you guys are, this is the stretch that everyone has kind of talked about.
Yep.
So when the schedule first came out, you said something like, it just matters like where we are in the standings. So
yep.
What do you make of where you guys are at the standings or the stretch run?
Well, I think, Matthew, we're at the part where we control it. I mean, for ourselves, for us, what's going to happen to the Washington football team is now in our hands. We go out and play the way we're capable of. We give ourselves a chance, and that's where we wanted to be. That's one of the things we talked about when the schedule first came out, because if you can get to this point and you have a chance, you have an opportunity, now you've got to make the best of it.
Cool, thank you.
Ron, you guys have dealt with so many major injuries to key players. What has allowed you guys to continually overcome this?
Well, I think part of it has been the depth. We've been very fortunate. Our personnel department has done an excellent job for us. And like I said, last year we did some good things, and we were able to build upon it this year. That's been good, I think. And then you got to give credit to the positional coaching. I think the coaches have done a really good job in preparation. We've had good depth. We've had players that we've been able to plug in and have them play because they've been ready to play. I think a little bit of it's the philosophy of the way we go through training camp. We try to make sure everybody gets an opportunity to rotate through, and they're either playing with the first group or the second group. They're not always, if they're a third string player or whatever, they're never not getting that opportunity to work with the first or second group. And that, I think, it gives us a chance to do some better evaluations. And then I think it's also the way the players rally around each other. I think that's also been very helpful. I know you guys got the example a couple of weeks ago when Keith Ishmael had to go in and play. He talked about how the guys around him just helped pick him up. That's important. And I think that's, again, as I said, that's a credit to, what our personnel department is doing. It's credit to what the coaching has done, and then the players themselves. I will say this too, if you look at what the coordinators are doing, I think the coordinators are playing to our strengths as well. So the play calling has been, conducive to us having success.
And along those lines, with Jack implementing a 3 safety set, and then Scott really adapting to all the changes on the offensive side, just with injuries and whatnot, what sort of growth have you? I mean, Jack's been in the league for quite a while, but what sort of changes in adaptation have you seen from those two, just in how they've really fit the personnel?
Well, I think that's the biggest thing you got to give him credit for. I think, especially on the defensive side with what we've done and how Jack has evolved that. I mean, we came into the season thinking we could do something like this, and then unfortunately it hadn't really came to light. So, willing to change, willing to adapt, and then having to, because the injury, I think, does show his versatility as a coach. You watch Scotty and you go through what we went through and talked about as we were coming out of the bye about, being able to run the ball, being able to use the play action pass, and then, being able to, wanting to spread certain defenses out. You really have seen that kind of come to fruition. And it's also something people understand too is, you got to learn to fall in love with the 3-yard run. You know what I'm saying? The 3-yard run, if you ran 2 3-yard runs, you're now looking at 3rd and 4, as opposed to being in 3rd and 10, so we've been able to do that. And I don't know if you saw it, but there was something saying that Taylor's completion rate is in the 70s, and being very efficient these last 4 games or 6 games, whatever it is, he's been very efficient. And so if we're in the right down and distance, we can exploit those situations and keep the chains moving, which we've been able to do the last 4 games as well.
Hey, Ron, have you ever reached a point during the stretch, because you've had a lot of injuries, have you ever reached a point you wonder how much more you and they can withstand to have this success?
Yeah. Now, to be honest with you, John, because, we look thin at a few positions, and the thing that has helped us has been what our personnel department has been able to do. I mean, talking to Marty and, looking at the guys that we have up on the board, and then look at the guys that, that Martin and Marty and our directors have looked at, what Chris, brings every time he brings the, the ready list, and we go through those lists. And then, today's a great example. We got an issue at one of our positions. We grabbed the ready list, and because our scouts are in right now, we were able to talk about some players that were on that ready list, and had the scouts that do those areas come in and give us the presentation on these guys. And so as we got that presentation, now we're able to sit and say, hey, this is the guy, or that's the guy that we want to grab.
And then another injury update, and two players, Montez, will he practice this week? I think Ben reported that, but will he be practicing this week? And then also Landon Collins, will he be able to go Wednesday?
Yeah, my understanding is, as far as Montez is concerned, as we're waiting on the okay. Once we get the okay, he should be out there on Wednesday. And the same thing with Landon. Landon came in, got treatment. He looked actually very good. I know the doctors are going to take another look at him, and we're going to continue to monitor that for the next couple of days. But I am anticipating, got my fingers crossed, that he is cleared for Wednesday's practice.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey, Ron, I hope you can hear me okay. Just curious about John Allen.
Ben, I can barely hear you.
Hold on. Can you hear me now? Is that any better?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Just curious about John Allen. His snaps were a little bit lower than normal. I'm just curious if that was, if he had a little slip up during the game, which I think is part of the game.
Okay. Oh, you asking about John Allen?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, John, he finished the game obviously, and thought he performed very well. And it was just a little minor groin from what I understand, but he was able to finish the game, and we'll see how he is today. And when I get the medical report at 3:30, I'll have a better idea as to where he is. So for the most part though, he obviously finished the game, played well. He did a couple of really good things, and he's continuing to play top-notch football for sure for us.
Michael Phillips. All right, go ahead, Sam.
Cool, Ron. Just generally, what did you see from the game film, and what do you want to improve on, coming down the stretch, Ron?
Well, the one thing that was disappointing, we had really only had 8 drives in the game, and 4 of them were pretty much self-inflicted. We had a couple of penalties that we didn't overcome, and because of that, the drive stalled. One of the things that was good though was, even though our field position wasn't necessarily great, we always moved the ball out from behind the shadows of the goalposts. And if we did have to punt, we were able to punt and get them on the other side of the 20, which was very helpful. We had 3 balls inside the 20, so that meant they were going to have to start and drive a long way. So that was good. But not being able to overcome penalties is something we got to be smart about. We were able to overcome a couple of negative plays, and then unfortunately the interception, Taylor's hand gets hit just as he's releasing the ball, and that's why the ball fluttered out there and it was intercepted. But that's one thing I'd like to see us is be a little better disciplined, not allow those kind of plays to stop us. It's the first time it really kind of came up was this game. Like I said, we only had 8 possessions, and 4 of them we stopped ourselves, which was disappointing because there were penalties. And as I said, that one ball that got tipped, unfortunately.
And what led to giving Cole Holcomb the green dot back, and how have you seen him kind of adjust to that role, and what has he how has he grown over the past few weeks?
Well, Cole's had the green dot ever since we lost John. And he's done a great job trying to control and manage everything. And I think what's happened is he's settled in that role now. You know, at first, when he first got started, having to try and control everything, it was a little difficult for him. And I had a conversation with him at one point about it. He said, "Well, coach, break the huddle." And I got everybody yelling at me, "What's the call of Scott?" I said, "We just said it in the huddle." So he's kind of adapted to that and has really started to settle in and is much more comfortable in that lead role.
Thank you.
Ron, the defensive ends in particular, the last couple of weeks, I wonder how they are grading out. We're seeing Smith Williams getting a lot of snaps and also Tuhill getting a lot of snaps, but then you also worked Wise in yesterday some.
Mm-hmm. Those three guys really are very steady, as I've said before, blue collar style workers. They're the kind of guys that are just they're gonna go along. They're gonna be very diligent in what they do. They're gonna be very strict. You're not going to get a lot of spectacular plays out of them as much as you're going to get just consistent play, and that's how they've been. And we've been able to keep that going for us. The guys that have really stepped up and played well has been the inside charge. Those guys have really created some havoc. We had a couple of young guys that got a couple more of an opportunity, and you saw them in those critical situations at the end of the game. Shaka Tony and Rotimi Boomy. I apologize for the name. I know I messed it up. I apologize. But those two young guys are guys that bring some juice, some speed off the edge, and they kind of got an opportunity to try and impact those last couple of plays as well. So they've been very solid in terms of their production. We've seen a couple of spectacular plays that Shaka has made, and he's of all the young guys, I think he's a guy that brings a little extra juice for us.
You've also mentioned a couple of times the last couple of weeks that you'd like to get a little bit more fan participation at FedEx.
I would.
Rooting for the home team. And I'm sure what Dallas means to this fan base. Yep. And I just wonder, other than just being loud, what do fans in the stadium in large numbers do for your football team?
It creates energy that the players can play to. It's kind of odd last year not having fans. And when we got down that stretch, when we really, could have used a little energy, it would have been great to have had them then. It really would have, because, we were fighting for a playoff position. We were able to accomplish it. I could only imagine what it would have been in that first round against Tampa Bay. I'm not saying we'd have won, but it'd have been interesting and fun to see what would happen and how it would have meant something to us having our folks up in the stands cheering us on, and how the guys would have reacted.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, David.
Sorry, some Baja Fresh in my chin there from the airport, Ron. What did you think of the Logan Thomas hit? Did you get a chance to watch it, and what was your reaction to it?
I thought the play was avoidable. It was unfortunate that the hit occurred and it was low. As a defender, you'd like to see him use his hands upon impact. I mean, it's an unfortunate play, but for the most part, as far as I was concerned, I just felt that it was something that was avoidable.
And what have you made of Keith Ishmael at center? And I believe Tyler Larson was in uniform yesterday. So what was the decision there to stick with Ishmael at center instead of go back to Larson?
Well, I thought Keith did an excellent job. He's an athletic guy, moves very well. He reminds me a little bit of Ryan Khalil that we had in Carolina, a very athletic guy that moves well laterally. Keith's not as stout as you'd like him to be, but he's a technician. The reason Tyler was dressed was we would have used him only in an emergency. We were, obviously that's one of the positions we're thin at, because Keith is our fourth center. Our fifth center is a guy that's very is tough. Very inexperienced, and we really didn't want to have to go there first. So fortunate enough for us, Kyle Larson was ready to roll if we needed him. So he was there, Peter, only in an emergency.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Russell.
Hey, Ron, sorry about that. Obviously, you guys have done a great job controlling the clock, running the ball, all that stuff, wearing out the opponent. But what do you say to critics, I guess, of this attack, that it just doesn't generate enough points? Is there anything that you can reconcile out of that, or are you willing to sometimes make that trade-off for all the other benefits that it provides?
As long as we're winning, as long as we're keeping the points down, I'm not sure why, I mean, I still love games that were 17-10, 17-14, I'm not sure why everybody thinks a 50-48 is a good game. I really don't. And I'm one of those, I'm a proponent that you play the game a specific way. Whatever way suits the game, that's how it should be played. There may be a game where we've got to score more than 17 points. I get that. But if you're in a game and it's like grind it out, rock 'em, sock 'em, then why would we want to throw the ball 30, 40 times and expose the ball to something bad to happen? Again, the formula is working. It's kind of interesting too. If you go back and you look at the teams that have won the Super Bowl and look at how well they run the ball, that's kind of an interesting stat. You know what I'm saying? I just don't understand why people think more points is better football. Because to me, it's not. And I think, I'm going on a limb a little bit, but I think throwing the football really also has kind of changed the way things are judged and looked at and refereed. And I don't think that's good for a football. I like the physical game. I like the physical nature of guys lining up and, trying to move somebody and control the clock and grind it out. I mean, I'll tell you right now, I'll take a 10-minute drive any day. I really would.
Just one quick follow-up. On the Bobby McCain pass defense on the deep bomb, their final possession, like the towel or whatever of the receiver. When you went back and watched that, I guess, did you think that Bobby maybe got away with one, or because he was playing with his eyes looking back at the football, is that maybe the reason why they didn't flag him for that?
Yep, he was playing the ball. It's funny because, there's a term that's used now that's called hand fighting. And I think that's one of the things that I talk about, that the hand fighting now, the jostling for position, as long as you're not gaining a clear-cut advantage, they're not going to throw the flags as long as you're playing the ball. And that's when you look at Bobby, that's exactly what happened. There was a spectacular interception in the San Diego Cincinnati game. Mm-hmm. When you slow it down, you see the defender actually hits the arm of the receiver before the ball gets there. But he is clearly playing the ball and makes a spectacular catch. I mean, it was one of those that the two guys went up and they both had a chance at it, but because he got in there and he hit that arm, he kept that other arm from coming in and clamping the ball. And the defender was able to do it. And there's some people that say, oh, that's pass interference. I said, no, look at the guy's eyes. Look at where he's playing. He's playing to the ball. And so as long as you're playing to the ball and the referee sees it that way, you're not going to get a penalty. And so I didn't think that there was an issue there, because Bobby was, he was feeling for the receiver, trying to find the ball.
Thanks, Ron.
All right.
Hey, Ron. I've really enjoyed kind of those post-game videos of the team, the locker room, and just from an outsider's perspective, it seems like this team is extremely close, and in a sense, they play for each other. Can you touch on that a little bit of the locker room culture, and maybe that's a reason for the success in this 4-game winning streak?
All right, I got you, Scott Abraham, ABC 7.
Yes.
You didn't start with that. I'm so used to it.
Switching it up on you.
Okay. Scott, I think one of the really neat things that has happened is that the guys are feeding off each other's energy more so than anything else, and they're looking to each other to carry each other, bring each other together. And I think that's what's important. And you do see the bonding. You do see it, when those guys, go out to dinner together, when we get to where we're staying, there's, 4 guys, 3 guys, 2 guys, they're hanging out. They're developing the relationships that you need to go forward as a football team. And that has been really cool to watch the growth. The locker room stuff, the stuff that, that we're doing as far as motivation, to me, it's we're just working off of a very simple theme. And that's really the challenges, the David versus Goliath challenges. And it has kind of felt that way, obviously, coming from 2 and 6. And so it's something we continue to build on. And I know the guys appreciate it. There's an excitement about it because of so many guys have had to step up and play. And that's also the other thing, because I think the teammates appreciate the way guys are preparing and getting ready to play, how they're holding each other accountable during practice. About this, like you see the defensive guys about running onto the field, running after the ball, finishing plays. You see the offensive guys, and again, the offensive line, as far as the offense is concerned, is a great group, and they push each other to, the pass is thrown and they're covering downfield. They're hustling back to the huddle. They're hustling to the line of scrimmage, ready to play. How when one of the offensive guys make a play, how they all rally around each other. So those are the things that I think has really helped this growth of this team in terms of just maturing as a unit.
And Ryan, a quick follow-up. You talk about maturity. You've talked about maturity since training camp. And now that this team is having success, 4-game winning streak, going into the biggest stretch of the season, 5 games to make a playoff spot or win the division title. Are you worried of how they handle success now?
No, because I remind them every week. Okay. I remind them it's a very simple thing. And I believe it was Coach Wooden that said it, that, talent is God-given, fame is man-given. Talent is God-given, be humble. Fame is man-given, be wise. And ego is self-given, be careful. So I try to remind them guys every week since we're start talking about that. Lose your mind over this stuff. You have to take it 1 week at a time. I told the guys, hey, let's enjoy this for 24 hours. We've got another hour before it's time to move on, or half hour, I should say. So once we get past it, now the focus will be obviously Dallas.
Thanks, Ron.
All righty, Scott.
We'll finish up with Darren.
Hey, Ron, just want to go back to Brian Johnson. What conversation maybe did you have with him after he made the kick, or when you went back to the locker room about what he did for you guys?
Darren, he was, it's funny. The irony of it all is he was somebody that we were watching all along. We tried to get him to come to training camp, and obviously he chose Chicago. And then when I was thinking about making the initial change, he gets scooped up by the Saints, and we made the change, and we brought in another kicker. And then when Joey was available, we brought Joey in, and then Joey gets hurt, obviously, and Brian was back in Chicago. And so we plucked him off their practice squad and brought him here and gave him the opportunity. And I met him for the first time in the hallway when he came to sign his contract, and just told him, say, appreciate you coming, Brian. Just know you got an opportunity, you got a chance, and you get an opportunity to win a game for us. And so he makes the kick. I went and congratulated him. He said, hey, great job. I knew you were going to get your chance, and you took advantage of it. He, all smiles, obviously. And I kind of like what Taylor said, was that not everybody knew he was, but now they do. And I think that's a big thing. That's a good thing for Brian and for us.